my stand is, first of all, that it's a failure of our system, that we are all animated by protest. It's a routine and normal part of a democratic process, and under military rule, I'm saying me, standing here or sitting here, under military rule was routine for us. As students, anytime, any policy we didn't like, we were on the streets. For us to now get all wound up that some unknown people are planning a protest shows that something has gone fundamentally wrong with the nature of the connection between state and society. Nothing to shoot the children of other people. Then somebody should shoot them if they think it's okay to shoot the children of other people.
Day before yesterday, the president of Israel, Netanyahu, was addressing Congress in Washington, D.C. And there was a huge crowd of protesters.
Everywhere he went to Washington,
the state security protected them.
Yes.
Just created a barricade.
Not close to the White House.
That's what Dr. Fayemi said.
I'm just saying, I'm putting Fayemi.
Putting him on.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I agree significantly with him that the way the state in current Nigeria has evolved is that it is seen as an arena of transactions, the ultimate state capture. South Africans recognized what was trying to happen in their country, and they set up a commission, the Zondo Commission, to look at state capture. I'm shocked that we have not set up a state capture commission in Nigeria already. It's only a statement about the fact that the National Assembly isn't working in Nigeria. Because by now, we should have a commission on state capture that goes further than the Zondo Commission went in South Africa.
I don't know what your thoughts are concerning, but some people are saying that the president should address the nation and talk to the people. Like, not talking to the people and has all this pro-government group coming to say that we should not put it. But what are your thoughts?
My thought is that governing has broken down in Nigeria. I mean, it is normal to people to, in fact, it's also a failure of political parties. In other countries, the political parties should be organizing all these things. Saying, government, you're not doing what you should be doing. These political parties are going, woo! When young people say, wait a minute, they will shoot you. We've created a slave country. Stephen R. Covey, in his final book, his 8th habit, says that the most important habit of the 21st century is helping people find their voice. That is the duty of all of you here, to help people find their voices. The Nigerian state is determined to prevent the Nigerian people from having a voice. That is not the 21st century, and we must change that, or there will be no Nigeria. My message is that Nigerians should come together, work collaboratively to save Nigeria. Because where Nigeria is not good. The state of the motherland is bad.
That's why we did.
That's why a new tribe is being birthed. We need a new tribe to act differently. From the esteemed estate of the realm, I would like to thank you very, very sincerely on this occasion where we provide a little briefing on the new tribe. I know a few of you may have heard of a new tribe, some may not have. It was formally, the portal was formally inaugurated on the 1st of May. The new tribe itself will be formally inaugurated on the 1st of October, but it has been quite active. And I thought that I should provide some insights into why we have this social movement in evolution. These are unusual times. As the good book says, when sin abides, grace abide even more. The state of our motherland is troubling. You just witnessed the reading of excerpts from 2 of my most recent books. One of them opens with a tragic paradox that is apt for the current state of our motherland. In Why Not, I opened with a then trending story of a young man who had raped his own mother to death and then sodomized her body. I had assumed immediately that it was a case of mental health until I read of some religious fetish and people assuring this young man that if he was able to rape his mother to death and sodomize her body, that he will be so rich, his wealth will not be measurable. That is a testament to a culture gone mad. However, the naked truth of the matter is that it has become metaphor for our reality. In the main, what we see on the public arena of public officials carrying on with such impunity when their country is literally dying reminds you of the young man who raped his mother to death and didn't realize he was doing anything wrong because he imagined that he would get ridiculously wealthy if he did that. It is for the correction of this unfortunate outcome of current experience that the new tribe has been birthed. The new tribe, and you'll get us on the portal, thenewtribe.com.ng, is a coming together of citizens committed to personal integrity, a culture of merit and social justice, sacrificial service to advance the common good, the work ethic, and making production an anchor of economic engagement, and who favor reason and rational disposition over emotions of ethnicity and faith, often weaponized by political actors. The structure of a new tribe, which is a non-partisan but not an apolitical social movement, is built on 14 cohorts of social action and 7 cohorts of organization. So 21 cohorts in all. The new tribe is due to be formally unveiled on October 1. It has already become very active since its portal, thenewtribe.com, went live on May 1. The most active cohorts as of now are the healthcare cohort, the Ubuntu community cohort, the public accountability cohort, and the infrastructure and economic growth cohort, as well as the elections cohort. Now, the organizational cohort of policy is also enormously active, and when we hear the Motherland report, it will be majorly an output of that cohort. The gentleman sitting to my right, Ogene Momo, is one of those in that cohort. One of the things that will come out of that cohort that will draw the input from all the other cohorts in the next 2 weeks will be what we call the Motherland report. And every 4 months, the new tribe will issue a state of the nation, which we call the Motherland report, the state of the motherland. 2 weeks from today, the leadership of the new tribe will issue the first state of the Motherland report. 4 months after, the new tribe will issue the second, and will do so every 4th month thereafter. The state of the motherland is certainly worrisome. So worrisome that notice by some not known people about impending protests has set off panic, threats, bullying, and scapegoating, resulting in prefabricated falsehoods by agents of the state. Man and the chambers of commerce are up in arms with the direction of the interest rates as monetary authorities struggle to contain inflation with high interest rates. And insecurity continues and arrive. In this season of unmasking of yesterday's pretenders and the shrinking of the club of truth-sayers and those who truly believe in a just society, it is not difficult to tell that the state of the motherland is of grave ill health. I watched our friend Dele Farutimi in an interview in which he said that he thanked God for this moment because it helped him know those of his friends who used to pretend from the people who genuinely believe in some of the values that we all collectively say we espouse. Like him, I'm enormously grateful that this season opened my own eyes. I think that one of the things that have been imagined by those who exploit ethnicity and religion and all of that is that there is no really terrible consequence of those approaches once they get what they want. But I can tell you that friendships and relationships of 50, 60 years have been fundamentally cracked by what has happened to our country in the last 1 year. But I am determined as a person, because I don't have a choice anyway, the way I was raised. Story which I tell again and again. I was born in Kaduna, I was baptized in Jos, I lived in Maiduguri as an infant, I started school in Kanu at St. Thomas's Primary School in Kanu. The rest of my primary education took place in Our Lady of Fatima in Buzo, in what is today Zamfara State. I moved east. I started high school in Onitsha, Christ the King's College, Onitsha. But the bulk of my secondary education was at Loyola College in Ibadan. Having grown up so pan-Nigerian, all my close friends come from places other than what I can call my ethnic group. I really have never understood ethnicity in the way that these people who have tried to weaponize these cleavages in society try to push them. And so when I saw people that I had respect for fall so poorly for these emotions, all I could think of was why the work of Joshua Green at Harvard is so important. Joshua Green runs the Center for Moral Cognition at Harvard, and central to their work is trying to understand why emotion is so easily exploited. And Green has written a book titled Moral Tribes: Emotion, Reason, and the Gap Between Us and Them. Because these people often try to deepen these cleavages of emotion. And as you can see, it's not only Nigeria that's fallen into that trap. Around the world, as the right pushes in Europe and the United States, you see these deep cleavages and increasing turn to emotion over reason. Maybe when the work of Joshua Green and co. try to bring together neuroscience, psychology, and philosophy in their engagement on those issues, when their work is done, we may better understand why the human mind allows a very educated person to act irrationally in the focus on this gap between us and them. I am vowed never to be one of them. So whatever is the cost of it, that's who I am. If I go to Sokoto, I will sleep in the home of somebody called Musa. In fact, my typical host when I go to Sokoto is the Sultan himself. Typical host, anywhere in the Southeast, classmates of mine. And I've said before in this country that I can go to maybe 32 states in Nigeria and not have to go to a hotel if I don't want to. Because I have somebody who is close enough a friend that I can sleep in their homes. I will not let politicians pursuing very narrow motives change that about me. The unmasking of yesterday's pretenders has become fairly disconcerting, but it's our reality. Citizens have a duty to mend those things that have gone wrong. But the soul surely laments extant reality when character is said to not matter, and the lack of it is actually celebrated when you find in extant reality clear evidence of the point that Jared Diamond makes in Collapse, a study of how societies have failed through human history. Surely, values shape human progress, and values seem to have taken flight from our current landscape, and citizens have an obligation to seek restoration. The details will come in 2 weeks, but I plan to set the stage today. On the challenged economic growth situation. Central to the purpose of modern government is the security of citizens. Security of life and property as duty of a leviathan, the state, can be extended to the domain of his economic well-being. No one disputes that it is tough going out there. The debates have been about who brought about the hard times and how best to tackle them. Insecurity has dealt a huge blow on famine, and food price inflation is serving notice of a famine if no spectacular initiatives are rolled out. And let me say very clearly that contrary to beliefs that people raise these issues just to be nasty, as people who get into authority positions often tend to typecast. I wrote at the beginning of this year, repeatedly, that Nigeria is about to fall into a major food crisis that will drive inflation and all kinds of things. And I suggested what could be done to remedy it. I suggested that if we focused on legumes, the kinds of food that the output 3 months is there, and massively organized young people, almost using the spirit of the OFN under Obasanjo, got farm specialists, and I don't mind going back to South Africa to get them, to provide support services, inputs coming from NGOs that play in that territory, because we know from our experience and the recent central bank experience that when you take the traditional methods, it's all corruption and nothing really happens. So get these NGOs, give them inputs, don't give them money, give them targets of output from their working with these young farmers, and in 3 months there will be enough food entering the marketplace to dampen food price inflation. I gave that in January as advice. It's not a matter of just criticizing. What did we see happen? Because the culture of governance is all transactions driven, they didn't even look out for advice that was being offered free. There are countries that will pay me millions for the kind of counsel that I've been providing free of charge. So it tells you where we are. Insecurity, like I said, has dealt a huge blow to family. Now let us turn to what has been central to our country's economy for years: petroleum, crude oil, and the role of the NNPC. I think that it is frightening And I'm glad I saw a few people on the internet speaking up on this matter. I think there was somebody, a professor from Benedict University, had a video that I saw that's gone viral about the NNPC. Is it not incredible that the NNPC, when we were screaming about this refinery business, NNPC said, oh, they can fix the refineries. I said, please don't try. Even if you have to sell the refineries for $1, do it. It will be better for Nigeria. They said, no, they just put X billion here, X billion there, and refineries will be working. They gave a date from 2 years ago. That date came and passed. Nothing happened. They revised it to some date last year. Came, passed. Nobody in Nigerian society was shouting, your dates are passed. Today, it's not, in fact, they're not even talking about it anymore. But billions have gone. It is not new in Nigeria. It happened with power. Immediately Obasanjo was elected, cabinet met, decision was taken that the power stations are completely of no value. Let's build new power stations across the country. Vietnam was going through a similar process after the war. They brought in enron badges with turbines to generate power, standby power. Began within 2-3 years, there was power all over the place. Vietnam does not have the cash that Nigeria had to do its own. But after our cabinet in 1999 decided that we will go that route, suddenly there was a change of ministers. Suddenly billions were going into, again, reviving those power stations. What was the result? Nothing. There's no nuclear facility in Nigeria, and it must be used within 24 hours. So at best, it has to leave overnight to be administered first thing in the morning when the plane arrives. And so Nigeria is not in a position to really run these facilities. There's one that was even more painful for me. Kenya had one. Nigeria did not have. But most of sub-Saharan Africa, not big, unless South Africa. These are the challenges that we face. Well, but there's some good news from the healthcare cohort of the new tribe. I share on that panel the experience so far of the efforts of the healthcare cohort of the new tribe in Nigeria. The cohorts typically have 4 co-chairs, to encourage a culture of collegial decision making, which reports to a 14-person council. Interestingly, the healthcare cohort has evolved into a 6-person co-chair group led by a cardiologist in Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. Abiodun Olatidoye, as an arrowhead. Others are California-based physician Acho Emeruwa, Abuja-based Dr. Zainab UK-based Dr. Loretta Uduware Oboruoko, and Kano-based nurse practitioner Zarau Ibrahim, and Florida-based pharmacist Dr. Tonya Wanufe. It is interesting that during a recent meeting in Washington, D.C., one of the members of this cohort, a Charlotte, North Carolina doctor, Ben Okwara, talked about how what we have been saying motivated them to come to Nigeria a few months ago and start a call center for U.S. medical practices. In Accra, in Apapa right now, there's a building. They've now recruited more than 100 people, trained them, and they're servicing U.S. doctors from Apapa. Their wage bill last month was 35 million naira. They expect to have 1,000 people employed in that place by next year. So creating this nexus of diaspora doctors and Nigeria is a major part of the initiative of the healthcare cohort of the new tribe. Among the series of strategies that they are now putting in place include one, getting a role of physicians who volunteer several hours a week to intervene in diagnosis and prescriptions to the poorest of the poor, located in rural areas, urban slums, and so on. Their way of giving back. We normally see people come on medical missions, but many indicate the staccato nature of medical missions. You just come in, anybody who's lucky, you do surgery, you do this, but organizing it in a structured way so that they can have traction and follow-up and sustainability with medical missions. And thirdly, a structured treatment for paying patients. This is not just going to be once they give free. Where, for example, they can use a facility, say the Afrexim Field Hospital in Abuja, and they will come in batches of healthcare, world-class healthcare. I hope you know the statistic that 70% of all the black doctors in America today are Nigerian. And so they will come in groups, in teams, and carry out medical care on ground in Nigeria as good as they give in America. So that people who can pay do not have to worry about visas or flight tickets. They can get the treatments right here in Nigeria. Save us foreign exchange, save us many things. A fourth initiative of this healthcare cohort includes organizing diaspora-driven community health insurance with the Ubuntu cohort. One of the things that the Ubuntu cohort also does is to try and identify interventions in communities. So a cohort with diaspora people looking at their hometown or some community that they've all agreed to. What is the problem in this community? Let's poll the community, find out what the problem is, and help an intervention that solves that problem that they need. That is their citizen contribution. And my favorite for the Ubuntu cohort, I said, look at cholera, what it's doing to us. If we could build public toilets, maintained like any airport toilet in America, in Nigerian markets across the country, as a contribution of a diaspora group to that community, we will do something that has lasting impact in our society. Then I'll begin to close with the accountability cohort. And I've already made the point about the NNPC. As the NNPC came to play the same game again with refineries. Meanwhile, they have been paying people billions in salaries who are supposed to work in those refineries. If there is no crime in failure of accountability that I know of, that is one looking us in the face. And yet, one of the things that we did not do when government changed was to try to even probe NNPC or do anything decisive there. We have a culture that has gone very sad. When a new group of political actors come in and just take off from where the other ones stopped the damage. We as citizens must say, enough is enough. If you don't, I was fascinated by the answer that Governor Kayode Fayemi, who was here earlier in the morning, briefly, to look at the books before going off on a trip. The answer he gave at the Emeka Obasi lecture when NEB said to him, you people who have been in government, you you went to government, what did you do? What did we see? Fayemi said, let's be honest, the experience that I have garnered now teaches me that no politician can lead Nigeria to progress the way Nigeria is currently structured. The people have to take their country. That's what Fayemi said at the Emeka Obasi lecture. NEB was the one who asked him the question. That is naked truth. Political class, the structure is now so decayed that anybody who expects progress from what we have is smoking something. Our prescription is to introduce, in terms of how we move forward, clear national strategy with industrial policy to drive competitiveness in select value chains rooted in factor endowments of geopolitical zones of the country. A champion or champions of sacrificial disposition, competence, and compassion, whose main goal is a place in history, will then be named to these assignments with measurable goals made available in the public domain for monitoring and accountability. Agriculture cities and industrial parks through PPPs and private initiatives, such as one that have been developing in Edo State, should emerge in a map of clusters brought alive as part of the urgency of now. Master plans of our Greek industrial towns, developed by Israeli consultants when Dr. Akim Adishino was agriculture minister, but not implemented, where, by the way, I met in Jerusalem last year, with a great grand plan. I mean, most of North Central converted into huge agricultural estates. Those plants are sitting, they've been done. Nigeria has paid for part of them. Our country is in excess of trouble with accountability. We must change that if we are to save Nigeria. Dear friends, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for the time you have taken to join us and to hear this message, because Nigeria will rise up again, and we, as citizens,